Good afternoon and welcome to Let's Shop Cake Live. This is a bit unscheduled. So this afternoon, this is a Facebook Live. So I'm going to show you how to paint the Christmas puddings and from Patchwork Cutters and the mini holly, ivy and mistletoe. Now I've already done this once before, but unfortunately I've managed to delete the footage. So I thought I've got to do it again this afternoon. And rather than just talk to myself at home, I thought I would do it as a live. So if you are watching this, I didn't say about this yesterday because I didn't know about it, but I am going to do a Facebook Live now and I am going to show you how to paint some of these patchwork cutters just as a project, and then I'm going to put it onto YouTube, so that's helpful, isn't it, for everybody? So that's what I'm going to do today. So we're going to use cocoa butter, we're going to go through that, we're going to use patchwork cutters and dusting colours as well, and we will have a look at all of those now. So let's have a little look. Let's turn that down so we can see what we're doing. So this is what I've mapped out already. So this is a round sugar paste plaque. Diameter wise, it's 6 inches round, and this is the patchwork cutter that I've used. So this is called Christmas Puddings. Now it comes in a set of 2. So here's the set of 2. There's a little one and a big one. This is the big one. Little one is more kind of suitable for cupcakes, I guess, so little tiny ones. And then so what I've done is I've made this like it would be at the top of a cake. So I've just done it sort of as a large topper. So you could put this on top of a cake. If this is a 6-inch round, then it would be an 8-inch round cake or more, I guess. So you could put it straight onto the cake, pipe round it, and then do your cake from there, which means that whoever gets this cake can then lift this off and keep it. It also means you can do it in advance. We like that. I love those things. Do it in advance. Round the outside edge, I've already stamped out some of the patchwork cutters. Now this is called Mini Holly and Ivy. So mini holly, ivy and mistletoe. So it's got lots of little bits in going in lots of different directions. So if I just show you there, so that's like the mistletoe one. And there's also a mini version of that. I've got to find it now. That's you can never find it when I want it. There you go. There's the other bit. So there's another bit of mistletoe there. What's that? And there's another one there. So there's 3 little bits of mistletoe there. Let's put those over there so you can see it. And then there's ivy as well. There's a couple of large pieces of ivy. They all turn in different directions, which is really helpful when you're trying to sort of set things out, because especially if you're going round in a circle, you kind of want the ivy and the holly to go the way that you want it to go, left or right, according to whatever it is that you're trying to do. If you're trying to get round a corner and it's going the opposite way, it's not very helpful. So there's lots of little bits to this in different sizes. So it's quite a nice little kit for doing Christmas here, because you've got a real selection here of different size pieces. So let's move this out of the way. So paintbrush wise, I've got all my paintbrushes. So we have got paintbrush 3, 2, this paintbrush 2 is the one I use the most, you see, because the numbers disappeared. 3, 2, 1, 0, 0 and 0. I probably will use them all. We'll see how we go, because we've got quite large areas to cover here, and then we've also got some sort of smaller areas around the outside edge here with sort of little bits of holly and things, so we probably will need some of those smaller ones as well. So let's get started. So in terms of colours, so I've put a few random colours on here, and we may or may not add to this. We'll kind of see how we go. So there's our cocoa butter there. I've already put some in there and it's melting. So that's what it looks like before it melts. You can see it just basically, because this is on a hot, I'm going to pull this back so you can see it, hot chrome food warmer. So there's a heat source under here, which makes this metal paint palette very warm, and because it's very warm, the cocoa butter will melt, and then we can use the dusting colours to mix it to form a paint, which will then stick to the sugar paste that we're painting, and it also sticks to chocolate as well. So this is the best way forward for being able to do some painting like this. So colour wise on here we've got royal gold, which is, they are all sugar flare colours, so there's sugar flare there. So this one here is called royal gold. We've got moss green, which is I think the best colour for holly. We have got woodland green, because we've got various different foliage on here. We've got ivy, we've got mistletoe, and we've got holly. We've got 3 different ones on here, so a different selection of greens is going to be very helpful for us. We've also got brown, white, red, and I've picked up claret wine here. I'm not too sure whether I'll use that one or not yet, but we'll see, because it's got a bit of a shimmer on it, so that might look very nice on the berries. I don't know yet, we'll see when we find out, won't we, when we go along. So let's get started. So I'm just going to pick up, let's start with paintbrush number 2. And we'll have paintbrush number 3 available, but I don't think we'll need it just yet. We're just going to get some colour down at the moment. So paintbrush number 2, and we're going to start with brown. So we're going to pick up some cocoa butter here, grab some brown, bring that over here so you can see it, grab some white, and so it goes to sort of a pale brown colour. So we always start with making the colour, the original colour we use, a bit paler, because otherwise we can't do any shading if we just start painting with the main colour without any white in it. You need to strip that colour back. So if you've got any questions during the live, then do please let me know. If you're painting along with me, that's fine too. I know I didn't give you much warning, 0 warning, half an hour. We are painting live, so there we go. Right, so I'm just going to paint the lower half of the Christmas pudding first. You can see, although this colour looks quite light on the palette, already when you put it onto the sugar paste, it looks a lot darker. It's just by nature of what this does. So I often say to the students, you know, do a bit of a test on a piece of paper and just see what it looks like sometimes before you go straight for the item that you're going to paint, because it's deceiving. I don't know why, but it is. So we're going to get in there. Now it's quite tight getting in close to those bits at the top with this large brush, but I need the larger brush to do the rest of the area, so I'm going to bear with it for the moment. And as it's only first coat, it doesn't really matter anyway. So we're going to come down here. So this is a matte colour. This is brown. It is included in my cocoa butter beginners kit, which currently has a £5 gift voucher in it for anybody who wants to have a go at that or towards your classes. So we'll come down here and just bring it down. So this is layer 1, and all layer 1 is about is just basically getting some paint down. It's not really about much else. We're not going to shade it or do anything else. We're just going to get some paint down onto the Christmas pudding itself. So there we go. Just move that down there like so. See, sometimes when I'm filming things like that, I will stop the camera at this point and then come back and show you, but this is a live, so we're going to go through the whole thing. It's quite big. As I say, this is not a particularly small patchwork cutter. There is a small one that could easily fit on top of the cupcakes. It's a little bit like Candles. The new one that's I've just been showing everyone how to use, called Candles, has got a large candle and a small one. And I've painted the large one already, and I've done both actually. No, I've done them both. I'm going to do the small one again next week for my completing my project that I'm going to finish on my cake board. And again, that video is on YouTube as well, so if you've missed it, you can have a look at that video there as well. So coverage wise, actually I might put a light on, that might help me. There we go, that's a bit better, I can see what I'm doing now. Coverage wise, at this stage, you should near enough have covered most things. But if it's not completely covered or it's a little bit streaky, that's fine. Don't worry about it, okay? We'll come back to that and deal with that later. Like so. There we go. Okay, that gets us started. So you can already see, well, I can now see under certain lights that it is a little bit streaky in places. I'll just go over that again really quickly, but it will dry very quickly and then we'll come back and we will paint it more later on. Okay, right, so next thing we're going to do is, well, we're going to clean our brush, which means we're going to dip it in the cocoa butter. We're going to wipe it on the piece of kitchen roll. I just kind of twist it. That's fine. You don't need to dab it or anything. You don't need to go running over to the sink. Just twist it onto the kitchen roll and just move on from there. So let's turn that round. And what we'll do is we'll do the plate it sat on, and we're going to do that in royal gold. Now, royal gold is a luster colour. So if it's a luster colour, it tends to use a little bit more powder than it would do if it's a matte colour, and the coverage tends to be a little bit better first time round. So I'm not going to put any white in it or anything. I'm literally just going to go for the colour as is, and it's a really nice gold colour, this one. So we're going to pop this down, and it's a nice Christmassy colour. So cocoa butter takes approximately 1 to 2 minutes to dry. It doesn't take very long. It takes a little bit longer in the summer when it's warmer. That's when you have to be a little bit more careful, because it is affected by heat. That's why we have our heat source under the cocoa butter to keep it melted, so we're able to paint with it. going to come down here like so. I've probably thrown everyone this afternoon by doing an extra live. I wasn't going to do an extra live, but I decided I would this afternoon. So come along here. You can see the coverage on that is very different. It's excellent coverage first time round with luster dusts. It always has been, but you will use more of them, so it just tends to pick up a lot more. So still on brush 2 at the moment. We haven't changed brushes because we're still painting quite large areas. So you won't need to switch brush at this point, and we will stick with it for the next bit as well. There we go. That's that bit done, and we'll let that dry, and again we will come back to that later on. It's only when I look up that I see bits that I've missed. There we go. Get those done like so. Right, okay, so we'll dip that in the cocoa butter, just clean our brush up again. Now we need to make sure we get all of this gold out because we're going to switch to white now, and if we do this with any hint of gold in it, it's not going to work very well. I'm going to turn that round. The one colour I forgot to put in actually was black. Let me just find some black dusting colour. I had a bit of a game with that yesterday. I picked up brown instead of black just to confuse myself. Let's pop a tiny little bit in here. Don't need very much. By the time you've literally opened it, there's enough black on there. Now what we're going to do is mix up a very light grey colour. So I'm going to dip this into the cocoa butter again. I'm going to pick up some white, which I'm going to mix just here. And then I'm going to grab literally a few grains of black, and we're going to make this a light grey colour. Now when I paint this, it's going to look white basically, but when you come back and highlight it later on, it will go, the white will really stand out. So it's quite important to do this. It's just a bit of an optical illusion. So you think, well, this is white, what are you doing? It's not white, it's going to be a very, very light grey. I'll just pick up a couple more bits. Mixing up a fair amount because I want it to be, I've got a fair area to cover. So if we go again, you see what I mean? When you put it on here, it looks white, but it isn't. It's actually light grey. The background colour that I'm using today is actually Colour Splash Navy. So I've taken that colour and I've mixed it through some white sugar paste, and I've ended up with this sort of a powdery blue type colour. So that often helps if you've got white backgrounds to do, because you know, if you've got a white Christmas pudding, white on white doesn't tend to stand out so much. So just think about that before you start painting. What am I painting? What colours am I using? And then you can get a better idea from there. So white paint can be quite sort of more difficult to get decent coverage, but again, this is the first layer, so I'm not too worried. And we'll just go into the holly up here. If you go over the lines, it doesn't matter because we can always cover it at this point. Not going to be a problem. We're just going to work our way across it. The gold is lovely, isn't it? It's a very nice gold, this one. Very shiny. I'll come down to there, back up. And then just keep going. If you find your brush is getting too big, then just swap sizes. This is just about okay. But if you were finding this difficult, change to brush 1. Just go down a number, and then you might find it a little bit easier. Because I'm painting right up on the tip of my brush, I'm just about getting away with it, I think. So we'll come into there. Just go right round to the top of the Christmas pudding. So anybody who's thinking of doing this as a Christmas cake, you can do this on a plaque now. Because don't forget, Christmas is what, 20 days away now, something like that. So you could easily do this in advance. Get it done, get it stored. You don't have to do it on a cake board. You could just cut it out, leave it to dry on a cake board, and then just put it straight on a cake. I prefer them on cake boards because you can remove them. If you're doing a fruit cake, you can just put it straight onto the fruit cake if you want to. I quite like these raised plaques. I think they look really nice. They somehow look a bit more framed if they're on a plaque. There we go, like that. Okay, so that's it. So we can just leave that as is. And then I'm going to just leave the white on my brush because I need some more white now. I'm going to turn this around and we're going to mix some moss green. So moss green, I think, is the best colour for holly. We're obviously going to start with it with some white in it. So we don't want to start with it in its neatest form. So it's moss green with white. So I'll mix that in like so. Now I'm going to actually change brushes because if you note, the holly is now getting a considerably smaller and I don't particularly want to end up smudging it all with a larger brush. So I'm just going to mix it with this brush and then I'm going to put that brush down and pick up brush 1, which is this one. So it's a bit smaller. And then I'm going to actually do my painting with that. Again, I'm just going to add a little bit more white because I'm sort of slightly suspicious it's not light enough. There we go. Right, so I'm just going to start with the holly up here. So it's going to come out quite a light green colour, but that's okay, we don't mind. Light green is fine. And we're just following on this. So this is part of the Christmas pudding holly, so I've not added this. This is actually what's there. And then across here. Now within the patchwork cutter, when you get to this point, you'll see that the berries become sort of, you know, you'll see them with gaps in between. So there's a little gap in here. So what we can do is take our green and just infill around it, because what we don't want to do is end up with a great big gap in the middle. So we're going to imagine there's more holly under there, which there probably is. And we'll just infill that bit as well. So don't miss that bit out, otherwise it looks a bit weird. Okay, and then we're going up here. Around that side. And then over here as well. So this is layer 1, so always the first one, like so. So the little gap that you've got in there, that bit there, don't forget to fill that in. Now while I've got the right colour on here for green, for the holly, I'm actually going to do the holly that's now around the edge, because otherwise I'm going to have to mix it all up again, so it seems a bit pointless. So we're going to go straight for the holly that is already marked out. So this is a different patchwork cutter. This one is the holly, ivy, mistletoe. So it's quite a bit smaller. Now brush 1, you can just about get away with it. And it's a little bit more detailed, so you've got to concentrate a bit more here, she says, talking away, to make sure you get all of it in the right place. Because suddenly it stops and you think, is that a leaf? No, it's not a leaf, that's a gap. And then you've painted over something you shouldn't have painted over. So, and again, we will have, there's a stem that runs through the centre of this, so we will go back and do that in a second. Otherwise you've got all the holly on the outside edge. There we go, like so. And that one there. And here as well. So there you go, you've got a nice little kind of collection of holly there. We've got another piece there, so we're going to do that. Now with this stem, this brush will just about get away with it. So this is brush 1. You can see a little bit of stem coming through there and there. So just paint that for the moment. And then when we come back, we can always add more to that later on. So it doesn't matter particularly at this point. Right, I've got another little bit here. And here. There's also a little bit of holly in the Christmas MIDI set, if anybody has that. There's a piece about this size for Christmas MIDI, which is the one that's got all the little presents and baubles and various things in it. It's quite a nice little set, that one. And again, with this one here, just take that green down a bit further into the middle. And then another piece of holly here. I keep turning it round as well. I don't want to make this like a painful operation for myself. I need to keep moving it so that I'm not painting at sort of strange angles. So we will paint this here. And here, sometimes these patchwork cutters overlap a little bit and you get kind of like a second sort of embossed mark, but I find once you've painted over everything, it really doesn't show up, so I'm really not that worried because the stalk of that one is going through this holly, but honestly you won't notice it when it's finished, so I'm not that worried about it. Right, okay, so we're happy with that. Do I want to put any more on it? I think I'm okay with that actually. I mean, in argument's sake, I could potentially put one more piece of holly in there, but I'm just trying to find one that's not too big. I keep picking up everything but what I'm looking for. Of course I do. What's that? There's a little bit of holly. No, I'm going to stick with that as it is. 1, 2, 3 and one on the top. We have to think florist here, everybody. Right, let's clean our brush. Now, let's do those berries. So what we'll do with the berries, we will go into... I'll dip that in there. We'll pick up the red and we will add some white to it, which will send it a sort of a salmony pink colour. So it won't be red. It will go sort of salmon pink, which is what we want. It will look red when I put it on here. Always does. When we add that colour later on, it will infill a little bit. So we'll pop that in. I'm still using brush 1 at the moment. Let's paint that in. Right, so you can see that green in the middle standing out a bit more now. We might even go darker on that later on, just to give it a bit of shadow. There we go. Like so, just a bit, there we go. Okay, right, now we are going, let's grab a bit more red, tiny bit more white, because I don't want it to end up too red. And what we'll do is we'll just go and do the holly berries that we've already just painted. So we've got these here as well. So we'll just paint those. If you've got a colour on you're using, you may as well finish off doing everything else connected with that colour before you change it again. It's just easier. Otherwise you're having to clean your brush out more. So it's really sort of starting to stand out now, isn't it? Very nice. Okay, and then we've got one there. What do we got going on here? Let me just get my eyes in focus. Got one there. I mean, you can add extra ones if you want to. It really doesn't matter. So if you think, oh, I quite fancy putting another berry in there, you can. I'm just sort of working out what's going on here. I think that's it. But I'm going to make these a little bit bigger. Yeah, that's it. Okay, fabulous. Right, let's clean the brush. Get all of that red out. And then what we'll do next, we'll have a look at the ivy, which is this one here. So that's the ivy. Now, there's some different types of ivy around. There is dark green ivy, there's variegated ivy. So let's have a go at doing variegated, why not? Let's just see if we can do something a bit different. So I'm going to grab some woodland green and stick some white in it. So I want it to be fairly light to start with. And we'll paint this and we'll do the variegation once it's dry. So we have to wait for it to dry before we can do that. So we've got a little bit over this side. A little bit over there as well. There is a stalk there, but what we'll do is we'll come back to that because I want to change brushes to do that because it's a bit more narrower, I think. A little bit more there. So we'll come around this side. Over here. And then up here as well. This is, that's 2 small ones, wasn't it? I was trying to think then, was that one big one, but it wasn't. It was 2 small ones. So we'll try and variegate this, but what we'll wait till it dries first before we do that. I've not ever variegated it before, so I don't really know what it's going to turn out like. So we'll try it. If we don't like it, we can always just paint it over again, can't we? It's not the end of the world. And then we'll just do this on this side. See how that goes. So don't forget, woodland green is in the beginner's kit, but moss green isn't. Moss green needs to be bought separately. So don't get too carried away and expect that one to be in there. That's one you've got to purchase separately. They're not a lot of money, like £2.15 or something. They're not a lot, but they are. That moss green, if you're painting holly, is not in the kit. I mean, you might prefer woodland green. I think I just prefer moss green. Kelly and I have looked at this repeatedly and decided in the end this was the one we preferred. There we go. One more. Okay, like so. Let's turn that back round to see how we're getting on. So you can see there's some quite sort of sizable stems in with this ivy, but we'll come back to that in a minute. We'll leave it for the time being and we'll get a different brush to do that. Now with the mistletoe, I think what we'll do is we'll still use woodland green, but we'll just add a little bit more green to it, so it's a little bit darker initially. It's still got the white in it, but it's going to be initially a little bit darker. So we'll start by putting that in. It won't be the full strength woodland green. Don't fall into that trap. Let's put a bit more cocoa butter in those. We'll have a job to paint with it. Now this is really getting quite small, so there's an argument here you could just switch down your brush. In fact, what have I got here? Brush 1. Let's go down to 0 because it is quite small. I don't want to mess it all up at this point. So yeah, you do need a smaller brush for mistletoe. Got to remember to do that later. They're just narrower more than anything else. Make it a little bit more difficult to get in there to do it. Okay. And across here. Like so. In fact, while I've got this brush on the go, I'll probably do all my stems, I think. Turn that round. And we'll just go around this way. So it's upside down for you and for me at the moment. So if anybody's thinking it's upside down for me too. It's the only way I'm going to get in there to paint it without smudging it, I think. Then we'll come round. Just like that. And then while we've got this green on the brush, we'll do in the 0 brush, we'll do the stems. So all you can do is put a little bit of the paint on and just run it down the stem because it's made a little bit of a dent, not a lot, but a bit of a dent. Your brush should just fit into the dent if it's this 0 brush. Obviously, if you're trying to jam in a much bigger brush, you're definitely going to have a problem here. So, like so. And then I'll just follow the same colour through on the ivy. I'm not too worried that it's sort of similar in colour. It can be a bit darker in the middle. There we go. Right, let's turn that again. Yeah, that's looking good. Happy with that so far. Down here, whoops, I blobbed it a bit there, that's okay. I'll spread that bit around. I can always add in an extra holly leaf, extra ivy leaf if I need to. Have to do a random painted one. Okay. I've missed a bit. Look at that. There's a big bit of mistletoe down here. Right, let's do that in a second. Let's finish this stem before I forget that. Let's do this bit down here. You escaped me. That sneaked up on me. I didn't realise. Right, there's a stem there. You're never sure what these patchwork cutters are doing, you know, you don't really understand or can't really see it. Just stamp it out on another bit of sugar paste before you start, just to kind of familiarise yourself with it. or you can follow one of the videos. I've done enough videos on patchwork cutters now, so I'm sure there's plenty there for you to follow. I don't think you'll find it too demanding. They're fairly straightforward. The holly one can sometimes be a little bit muddly, but once you've painted 1 or 2 leaves, it starts to become much clearer what you're doing. There we go. Okay, right, so let's just clean the brush again for a second. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back to that original grey colour. Do you remember we mixed up a grey, this part here? So we'll use that on the mistletoe berries with our 0 brush. Put that on. Okay, and then we've got some over here. So once we've kind of done this, I think what I'm trying to show you here is, again, it's the usual story. Everybody paints everything once and goes, that's it. Well, we're not going to do that. We're going to now sort of carry out some shading and just improvements, I guess, to make it look a bit more kind of 3D. Okay. There we go. Right, so that's everything painted, and now we can start doing our shading. So there we go. Let's clean our brush. Now my cocoa butter's getting a bit full of everything under the sun, so I'm just going to add a few little bits more. So I've got some more cocoa butter in there. You won't use very much every time you paint, hardly anything. Right, let's go back to brush 1. I'm going to just clean it. What have I got in there? Green at the moment. Right, let's get rid of that. And brush 2, where are you? Also with green in it, yep. That's because we mixed the green, didn't we? So let's clean our green brushes up so we've got rid of all of that. And we're going to go back to the brown, so we're going to go back to the start. And we're going to start shading. So we're going to need brush number 3, which is our dry brush, so the brush that doesn't have any cocoa butter in it at all, so it's just completely dry. And brush 2 for putting the paint down. So we're going to take hold of some brown and we're going to mix it next to the white that we had before. We're going to add some more white to it. We don't want it to go as pale as the last one. We need it to be a bit darker, and you'll find that out when you come to put it on there. If it doesn't show up, which that isn't particularly, we will add some more until it does. So there we go, it's a little bit better. So we're just going to kind of stipple over the Christmas pudding. So I just randomly put some dots on there, so nothing too precise. We're not painting flat here, we're just using the dry brush just to blend it all in. If I've clipped the white, so be it, doesn't matter, we'll come back and sort that out later on. So we'll go up into that. And then down here as well. And that's fine, we can leave that there as is at the moment. So it's made it less flat, otherwise it can look very, very flat. So let's clean our brush up again. So we'll get rid of that brown off paintbrush 2, which is what we're using at the moment. Now I need to get all of this brown out because we're going to go to white. So definitely got to get it all out, otherwise we're going to have a very funny colour Christmas pudding. Right, let's pick up some more cocoa butter. We're going to mix just some white on its own. And then what we'll do is we will stipple this over the top of this, like so. So we'll kind of stipple a bit of a patch, and then we will get hopefully a brush that doesn't have too much brown on it. No, it's got a little bit of brown on it, this one. We'll just stipple it, that'll be all right. Like so. So it's going to catch that colour underneath, that light grey we put down before. But it will just start to add some highlights to it. So It'll brighten it up, that's what I'm trying to say. But it's okay, it's not flat. Like so. Okay, so it's given a bit of texture to it without actually sort of having it all flat and plastered like that. We don't want to do that. Right, paintbrush number 1, where are you? There we go. Right, let's have a look at the holly again. So the holly is our moss green colour, remember? So we're going to go and dip that into the cocoa butter. We're going to pick up some moss. We're going to mix a little bit of white in it, but not too much. So it's just a little hint of it next to that. And we're going to now do some shading. Let's grab a tiny bit of white on our holly leaves here. So what we'll do is we will go round the edge of the holly like so on one side. Now if you've got your dry brush, you might find that brush number 3 is probably a little bit too big for this. So if I just take brush 2, just quickly cleaning off the white, and then I can just bring this in a little bit if I'm quick. Yeah, if I get enough cocoa butter off, it should work. Let's have a look and see if that's coming out on there. I'll go a little bit darker. So only on one side. Don't do it on all sides. Oops, I can't paint with that backwards, can I? Like so. Yeah, so just on one side. Oh no, wrong colour. What am I doing? This one. Let me just get rid of that. Hold on. I decided to dump a load of dust on it. Again, just flatten that down. That starts to make that look a bit more 3D. I'm just going to go back to this one. And then take that darker moss green colour and just go in the middle here. Sort of tap it in there. Go just to kind of darken that area up a little bit. I don't think it matters which side of the holly you decide to blend. It really doesn't. It's just so that it makes it a bit more 3D. Right, while we've still got the green on here, let's have a look at the other holly going around the outside edge. So we'll do the same thing again. So because this is smaller, we can do more at the same time. So we'll do them in 3s. Like so. Hopefully it's starting to come alive a little bit now on the cameras. And then down that side as well. Okay. And then down here. Again, just blend it in. So don't forget, this is moss green, this is not woodland green, okay, don't get confused. As long as you act quickly with this blending, then you should be fine. It's only if you sit there looking at it that you end up with a bit of a problem. Okay, there we are. Right, let's have a look at the berries. So I'm just going to clean up brush 1. Actually, no, we'll do it with 0. Where's 0 gone? There it is. cocoa butter put in. So with the berries now, we just go for neat red. So red with no white in it at all. So red on its own. I'll pick up a little bit of red. Okay, and then what we'll do here is we'll literally just catch the side of some of these berries. Like so. Now you can use another brush to kind of soften it down a bit. I'm going to probably use my zero brush. I don't think I've put that in anything yet, no. And I'm just going to bring that down a little bit, just so they don't end up kind of stripy. And same there. So just across on one side, and then just use that other brush just to pull the colour through a bit. Okay, if I just hold that up for a second, you'll be able to see what I'm doing there. If I show you that, can you see the way it's only on one side? Because the next ones are very small. We're just literally going to just dab a little bit of colour on the side of these. It's like you're painting over them again, but not very well, if that makes any sense. So you kind of do it badly, and that's enough. So just put a little, you don't even need to blend these ones because they're so small. Just literally just put them on like that. Yeah, this is a really nice patchwork set, I think. It certainly does lots of things because you don't have to do it as big as I'm doing it. You can just do it sort of quite small, whatever you like. Right, now I'm going to bravely have a go at doing variegated. I must be mad, but let's give it a go and see what we can come up with. So let's clean up my zero brush. Let's get all the red out of that and see if we can do anything with this. I've never done this before, but I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm going to clean up brush one as well, get rid of the green out of that one. And then what we'll do, let's find a patch to do that's quite big. So let's turn that round this way. So variegated ivy tends to have a sort of more white, pale, greeny type sort of colour in the middle. So what we'll do is we will do it, let's pick up some, what have I got here, brush one, we'll pick up some white. And then what we'll do is add a very tiny amount of moss green, just so it's not pure white. Oh, that's annoying. I hate it when it does that. And then with variegation, it would be in the centre here. No, we're going to go white. It doesn't show up enough. We'll do white. That's better. Into the middle. And just like so. So it's not completely right to the outside edge. Now I will pick this up when I've done it so you can see it. So all I'm doing is painting down the centre lines just to the outside edge, but leaving the outside edge. And you kind of do it quite roughly. You're not trying to do anything sort of too precise. If you look at variegated ivy, there's nothing neat about it. It is meant to be like that. So yeah, we're just using white. I've decided. I think the one with the green in is a little bit too pale. Might as well have a go at doing something different. That's coming out fine, so that's okay. And it just looks a bit different. It looks a bit more interesting than just doing sort of plain dark ivy. So I'll hold this up when I finish this particular bit here so you can have a little look. There we go. Can you see that? So that's doing some sort of variegation there. And you can see then it suddenly starts to look, oh, what's going on there? A little bit more interesting. Let's move that up in there. So we'll put that round there. So that's the same as that one, remember? But I've just tilted it at a slightly different angle. It's also gone off the edge of the board. That's allowed. you can do that. That doesn't have to fit exactly. So if it goes off the edge, well, that's okay. Doesn't matter. You probably wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't told you. And come down this one here. Okay, there's a bit of variegated ivy, just something a bit different, I guess. Like so. We can always go back and make the outside edges even a little bit darker. So if you wanted to make that white stand out even more, you could go back with, what brush have I got here? A 0. Grab some woodland green with a little bit of white in it. Only a little bit. So you could put, oops, you could just back into this a little bit if you wanted to. So perhaps if you've got your white in the place you don't want it, you can always add some touches of dark green on the edge of this as well to make it kind of stand out a bit more. Just right round the edges. Let's turn it. I noticed someone's just come on and said they've missed it all. Once I've done this, I'm going to put it on YouTube, so you will be able to watch it. Or you'll be able to watch it back on here. But I'm also attaching all these videos to the products on my page. So if you are looking for patchwork cutters, ivy or Christmas puddings and all that stuff, you will be able to link straight to the video to see how it's done, to see if it's something that you would want to do. Just link that through. So just a little bit of variegated ivy on this. You can see I'm not being too precise about it. I'm just kind of going around the edge. And then if I turn it back that way, we'll just take the dark woodland green colour. Oh, no, I've gone into moss. No, I haven't. I'm in woodland. Take this woodland green colour. And I'm just going to run it down the side of this stem, because what that will do, although it won't look much when you're doing it, it will start to make it look a bit more 3D. Like so. And then same on this. Only little touches, they're not huge, great big sort of lines or anything. It is exactly what it is. There we go. Right, now what are we doing next? Let's have a look at the mistletoe before we move on too far. So mistletoe, we're getting now the very dark woodland green, and again we're just going to go down the side of these leaves in places, and what will happen here is this again will just make it look like a bit of a shadow. You may not need to blend these. You may find that just that line there will be enough. Let's have a look. Yeah, I wouldn't bother blending this. I think a line down one side is all you need to do. So this is woodland green. This is the darkest green. And we'll come along there, like so. Very festive. And again with the, so forget that bit of mistletoe down there like I forgot last time. You can take the darker colour and just run it across the stem. Don't forget these ones at the bottom. Like so. Okay. Now, what are we doing next? Let's have a little look. Now, what I want to do is I would like some more shading on the holly. Now, the moss green is at full capacity, so I'm going to take some of the moss green and I'm going to mix that with a little bit of woodland green to make a little bit darker, because it's not dark enough for me. I want it a bit darker than this. And then I'm going to go back in here again, Just a very now thin line going around the outside edge here with my zero brush, and then I'm just going to pull that colour across. Okay, so if your moss green has given you the majority of the colour, the woodland green will just tip it over the edge. Oops, wrong end. Yeah, much happier with that. You can also use that colour as there's marks in these in this holly that's like a central line. You can use that colour to do that as well, which we might do in a second. Let's just get this little bit done first. So we go up here. I keep forgetting to breathe. I want to breathe in and out. And then like so. So this is moss green with woodland mixed into it. You see, that gives you a much more sharper colour on the outside edge of this holly, which is what I really want. I don't want it to look sort of blended into the background, because holly isn't like that. So by doing this sort of extra thin line around the outside edge, it doesn't interfere with all the shading, but it gives it a bit more definition. It went for the wrong colour again then. A little bit there. It gets quite tight on these little ones here, so make sure you don't use too thick a brush, otherwise you'll be cursing it. But you can see, I think that extra dark green line makes quite a bit of difference. I'm just going to put a little bit more on the stem. So if I hold that up, you'll see the difference there. It makes a massive difference. Okay, so don't go adding in black or anything funny, just go for a darker green. So basically what I've done is mix two greens together, woodland and moss, to give me this colour. And then we'll do this bit of ivy around here, so holly rather. So any of these little bits you could use on cupcakes. You don't have to use them on a big plaque like this. So if you just fancied sort of putting some on some cupcakes, you could do that. Okay, there we go. Let's have a look at that so far. Right, now let's go back to the Christmas puddings. That needs a serious amount of shading. We have got some shading to do on there. So paintbrush number 2, let's get rid of the green that's on there. So we need to indicate that this has got some shading on it at the bottom. So we're going to go straight for dark brown on its own. And I've also got paintbrush 3, well I did have paintbrush 3 ready. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come along this bottom line here. I'm going to get quite a bit thicker, and then I'm going to fade it out. And I'm going to take this brush and I'm going to very carefully just blend that like so. Okay, so that indicates the bottom of the Christmas pudding. So you have a little bit of extra colour in the middle and then fading out up there. Okay, and then what I want to do as well is some of these areas here where there's obviously some markings on these Christmas puddings, I'm just going to sort of dot a bit of darker colour over them. guess they're the raisins or something, are they? I don't know. So I'll just dot those over like so. And then what I want to do is to indicate a difference between the Christmas pudding and the topping is get my brush with the dark paint on it, and I want to go as close as I can, probably not with this brush because it's too thick, to this, in places, not necessarily all places. Then take hold of another brush and just blend that down. Let's do that again, because that then will make the white stand out, because it's darker. You see, it should be coming out darker now. Yes, it is. So probably use brush 1 up here. I wouldn't use this one, brush 2. What I'm doing, it's probably too thick. I'm being quite cautious with this. And just before it dries, just very carefully just pull it down a bit. And you see the difference it makes. It makes a huge difference. Now on the sides of this as well, can you see now the difference between that and that is massive? It's really important. And what we'll do is we're going to have some shadow around these sides as well. So I'm just going to take my brush, put a bit of a line there and just drag that across. Like so. And then we'll do the same on the other side. It doesn't have to be the world's thickest line, it just has to be there. Again, just pull that across like so. There we go. Now these ones around here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a few extra dots in the darker colour around the whole thing. Let's have a look. Yeah, there we go. Just a few, doesn't have to be loads, but what we don't want it to do is go spotty, so just act quite quickly with it if you're going to do this. Just give it a good old blend like so. There we are. Okay, right, let's go back to the mistletoe. So let's take our zero brush and we're going to pick up some white. So just white on its own. Where are we? Just do that. And then you can just catch these little berries here just on the side. Doesn't have to be too complicated, just catch it there. Okay, and again on this one down the bottom. And then take a little bit of black, just a tiny bit. In fact, put a little bit of white with it so it's not totally black, just more like a dark grey colour. And then we're just going to put a little spot on the mistletoe. So yeah, rather than just doing it really strong black, just do dark grey. Like so. It's all these little details actually that really do make this project, I think, because it's just too easy just to skip some of these bits. It's not obvious what you should be doing. You know, if you look at it, you think, well, yeah, I finished, and then you go, oh no, hold on a minute. And then we'll just put some little dots on the berries as well. Don't put them all in the centre, move them around a bit, don't keep them all in the same place. Because don't forget the berries could be sort of twisting in different directions. They're, you know, they're not all facing the same way. Okay. Right, I think we're near enough there now, aren't we? A tiny bit more maybe. What I'm going to do with this area here, where this, is it a plate? I don't know. This is brown. I'm going to just use some brown just to make this, split this plate up. Now this is my 0 brush. I've just pushed it all the way into the gap, so I'm not trying to do anything too scientific here, other than let the gap pick up the paint. Thank you. I'm just reading some of your comments. There we go. And then we'll just put a little bit round there as well, because that's there, just to indicate that. Like so. Now if you're feeling very brave, you can go around the outside edge. Now I say it's very brave, it's actually not that difficult, because that gap is there, and you've got, as long as you've got the right brush, you're going to be okay. I'll go around like that. Okay. It's fading out a little bit towards the edge here. It's probably some running out of paint as I go around. And don't forget to go down that side bit as well. Now I want to put a shadow under this, on this bit here, so I just need to be a little bit cautious with this. So what I'm going to do is take paintbrush number 2, make sure there's nothing in it first, nothing scary. Oh, brown, that's fine, I can coat brown. Brown and royal gold, I'll mix those two together. So royal gold and brown. And we're going to have a go at putting a bit of a shadow at the bottom of this. So that means we're just painting onto the edge of this plate, like so. And then I'm going to take brush 3 and very carefully just sort of flatten it down a little bit. So it's not the world's biggest shadow, but it is there. Let's make that a little bit darker. If you go at this cautiously, then you won't make any mistakes, hopefully, she says. Because there would be a shadow there. By default there would be a shadow there, otherwise it would look a bit strange. There we go. Okay. Right, I think that's it. There we go. All right, so that's how to paint the Patchwork Cutter Christmas pudding, large. So don't forget there's also a small one in it as well. It's not just the big one. There's the little one. So that's the cupcake size one. And that's the holly, mistletoe and ivy patchwork cutter as well. All of them are on the website. So if you are looking for them, if you go to the website, you will find them on there, and you will then be able to recreate this just like I've done it. Follow the video and you'll be able to do the same thing. You weren't expecting me this afternoon, were you? I wasn't expecting to be here either. Right, okay, well, thank you very much for watching this unscheduled Facebook Live. If you want to have a look at this stuff, don't forget it is all on the website anyway. If you missed Let's Shop yesterday, it is now available to watch, so don't forget to have a look at that as well. Let's Shop Kate Live was on yesterday, so you can go back and watch that as well. So thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you on Tuesday, 6:30, Sugar and Crumbs. If you watch me on there, I will be there. Otherwise, I'll be back on Let's Shop at 10 o'clock next Saturday. So I'll see you all soon. Take care. Bye.